How do you grow up in the restaurant business in Milwaukee, Wisconsin with a mom who won't use technology, who keeps everything in her brain or a written notebook, and end up being a tech entrepreneur in self-storage? Really excited to have the CEO of nodaFI on the Stories Behind the Door podcast, founder Jacob Pandl. Oh, so excited. This is one of those rare occasions that I get somebody on the podcast who we haven't actually talked before. So first and foremost, let me, Jacob Pandl from nodaFI, thanks for agreeing to come on and do a live podcast interview with somebody that you'd never talked to before. I appreciate that greatly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Looking forward to it. Appreciate you having me on, Thaddeus.
So I was so excited to get introduced to one of my favorite people in the self-storage world that you just brought on board, Jessie Lamb. Used to be with Strat Property Management, worked for herself consulting for a little while. One of my absolutely favorite people. So we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get deeper in. But I always start the podcast the same way. Usually the question I ask is how somebody got into self-storage, which we'll cover with you. But you're really a tech company. So I want to kind of draw back and say, how did you get into technology? How did that become something that Jacob Pandl pursued?
Yeah. I can go pretty far back on that one.
We like that.
So going far back, I guess I grew up in Milwaukee, in Wisconsin, and grew up in the restaurant business actually. So my parents, still to this day, they run a little German American restaurant, supper club in Milwaukee. Growing up in the restaurant business, I was also, kind of a nerd. I was really into technology, computers, all that stuff. And I saw in kind of like the, early 2000s time, it was quite an interesting time with all of these technology companies popping up. Entire industries kind of being transformed and all these incredible businesses being built. But what I saw kind of working, having kind of a pulse on that, but then primarily working with my family in the restaurant industry and noticing things like not really changing. Nothing was really being affected, at least at that time, in that space. And so, first thing I actually ever built was when I was younger, basically like an open table type thing for my parents, and
Yep.
they did not like it. They didn't use it. My mom still uses a notebook to this day. It works for her. I think they have open table, but they hate that too. So I was like kind of creating and looking for solutions in using technology in areas where it felt like tech was overlooking an area. So that I guess that's sort of just the types of things that I like to work on, and that found my way somehow over the years then into self storage. But generally, that problem space is really interesting, where you take there's a lot of great software companies that are built for software people, software like empowering those businesses. But I found like the really interesting problems and fun areas to be involved in, and the opportunity to kind of meet people that aren't doing the same thing as you. Those come from those like industries that are different than what we're doing here.
I think this is interesting. And I guess I want to go down this path. Obviously, this is a highly centered in self-storage. I get a little bit of small bay flex, and we'll talk about that, you and I, down the road in a different conversation. But I'm going to talk about your entry into the self-storage world. The idea of nodaFI wasn't necessarily about self-storage when it first started, though. There's other verticals that you're involved in as well. How did you decide where you were going to go with nodaFI ultimately? What made you go down this path of what you're operating now?
Yeah. So that one has an origin quite a number of years ago as well. The original idea for nodaFI came just as something I thought about in college. Went to UW-Madison again in Wisconsin, and it was a really kind of simple idea at the time. It was basically noticing problems around the facility. So the shower head doesn't work in the dorm room, or there's a clogged toilet in the library bathroom, or you name it. All of these different facility and maintenance related issues. And at the time, and this is like 2017, I was
Oh,
thinking,
it
okay,
breaks my heart that you were still in college in 2017,
that's
by
one.
the way. That hurts a little bit. That's
I was
great.
on my way out there, but yeah, the the essentially, like, I was thinking at the time, everybody has a phone at this point, right, in their hand or their pocket. There's people that want to know about these problems, and so if we could kind of connect the dots in an easy way, maybe we could solve this problem of, like, detecting issues around campus. So basically took the campus facilities, mapped them out using QR codes so that you could scan, and it would say, hey, I'm on the 12th floor of dorm room A, bathroom, and the shower doesn't work, and it would route it to the person who could take care of it. So that was the kind of like the original idea, but I kind of left that alone for a while, and then came back to it with my co-founder Dan, and then Mike, my other co-founder. And we took that idea and just kind of ran with it. We're like, hey, there's actually a lot of people using this, back in Madison. Maybe there's something to this. And from there,
You're what you created at the University of Madison, Wisconsin, the University of Wisconsin, Madison, the main UW campus. By the way, my stepmother, proud graduate of University of Wisconsin, Milwaukee. So
oh yeah, yeah,
spent
nice.
some fair amount of time, many moons before you. We're not going to date her because I'm way older than you. But anyway, I thought that was kind of cool. But people were actually using this software that you developed at University of Wisconsin.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'd say we weren't great business people at the time. We were just kind of nerding out on some technology.
I
So
love
we
it.
we didn't actually sell it. We just kind of had people using it. But it was a cool experience in college, seeing that kind of set up around campus, and our peers essentially using it and getting some interest and all that. So uh, it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think we eventually tried to sell it to the university, but yeah, again, not hadn't figured
Once
out
once you
sales.
give it away for free, it's hard to turn the
Yeah, yeah,
dial
exactly.
back, and that's great.
So yeah, they're not using it anymore, but yeah, we kind of followed that thread after a number of years, and really just started talking to hundreds, maybe thousands of people in the facilities management space, and learning more and more about the challenges and potential areas that we could help. And that's where kind of nodaFI evolved out of this, like, simple kind of QR code based issue reporting thing into something more all encompassing for facility operations, where we can help you track all of the daily, weekly, monthly, yearly things that go into keeping a facility running and operating smoothly, and at a effective cost. So that all got added in and evolved over time, basically.
I love that story because that's the best, right? When you start something that you have, I guess we always have an interest in making money, but you didn't create the software while you were at UW to be profitable. You invented it because you saw a need, right? You saw a problem that was happening in the market, and then to fast forward to 8 years and be able to monetize it. That's like the greatest entrepreneurial story that you can share. I'm a serial entrepreneur, so I
Mm.
love hearing stories like that. Talk to me about the transition from you graduate the University of Wisconsin. What happens between finishing school and now having nodaFI?
Yeah, yeah. So there's a big stretch of 5, 6 years in between there where I actually took a job. So I studied computer science, and I got into software engineering essentially after that. So I worked for a company called Zendesk for 6 years as a software engineer, and then a engineering manager for their kind of core ticketing product. So they do customer service or customer support software, and basically, there learned a lot about how I think really good technology could be built. At the time, a really great culture, I think. So a lot of those, like, those 6 years, a lot of that kind of helped inform how I could potentially build a company and a technology system that's scalable and all that. So took a lot from that, and there were also a lot of parallels actually from what Zendesk was building, sort of in the customer support world,
Yeah.
to eventually what we would build with nodaFI in the kind of the facility operations space. There's a lot of these. You think about a customer support life cycle. It's somebody submits a ticket, and you have some communication on it. You got to work on a problem, solve that, and so some of that is true in the facility operations space as well. Um, so basically, after doing that, and then getting back together with my co-founder Dan, again, like I mentioned, we kind of saw this. We started talking about things that we were seeing and wanted to build and work on. And he kept coming back to the idea of nodaFI at UW-Madison, and how fun that experience was and interesting. And it didn't seem like it was a space that was being looked at really intensely, that we could see. And that's when we started talking to a bunch of folks in the industry and learning more and more and more about the problems, and starting to discover that, to our surprise, that in 2022, 2023, folks were still using tons of spreadsheets and pieces of paper. And we had one guy we talked to that they ran their whole operation, and it was a fairly sophisticated, like, semiconductor, actually, manufacturing plant. They were running with Post-it notes, and their team would he would write Post-it notes and stick them up on the wall. His team would grab it, crumple it up, and throw it in the done bucket. And we were like, oh, okay.
Oh.
And that was 2022, So,
Oh, that's great.
yeah, it was pretty interesting. So we're like, all right,
Speaking
yeah,
of your mom and her aversion to using OpenTable, right?
yeah,
It's
right,
it's
yeah,
really miraculous how I'm 51. I didn't have an email address until I was in graduate school, 1996, 97,
mhm,
just to date myself a little bit.
sure,
I graduated college from Tufts University, major school, and never saw a website.
yeah,
So it's cool for me because I'm kind of on the front line of this
yeah,
generation that grew up without it.
mhm,
And to your point about the 2000s, right? Obviously the dot-com bust, and I saw it a little bit in the late 90s. We had that hiatus there where everyone kind of went belly up, and then in the
yeah,
2000s has just taken off and kept growing.
mhm,
That idea that it hasn't hit everywhere yet, and we get so used to technology, but it hasn't been utilized in every area it can.
right,
Kudos to you guys for seeing it and having the guts to go pursue it and follow it. I want to ask this question because it always amazes me. You have this job with Zendesk. Obviously, based on what you've said to me, it sounded like you got a promotion. You're doing well with them. Where does the guts come to give that up and go out and start something on your own?
yeah, that's a good question. I think for me it was as long as I can remember, I had this, like, feeling that I really wanted to. Maybe it was like my parents being entrepreneurial, um, but I always knew that I wanted to start a business, and that would give me the most kind of joy and satisfaction, fulfillment. I mean, to your point earlier about, like, problem solving and building businesses that way, like that's really fun, like having. And that was always what got me into technology and computers. It was like somebody could have a problem, I could type some stuff on a computer and solve the problem and see the results instantly. So that was sort of an addicting thing of, like, being able to create something and solve problems that quickly. And so back to kind of like building a business. Yeah, I mean, Zendesk was a great place to work. Learned a lot, met a lot of great people. But I always, like, just had a feeling that, like, this was not. I couldn't imagine my life continuing like this without actually building something. I think I would look back with a lot of regret if I just kind of stayed that course, and I had something kind of pulling me towards that at all times. So things were good there, but um, yeah, I remember the first day waking up after quitting Zendesk and going from making some money to having no
No
money,
income.
no income coming in, and a little bit more uncertainty. But you might think that would, like, induce some fear or whatever, but I still remember waking up in bed that day just being like, wow, like, this is amazing. I got my whole like, this is where a bunch of incredible stuff is about to begin. So yeah, I don't know, you just do it.
I got my last paycheck signed by someone else in 2001. And so I can very much resonate with that feeling of, like, there's something powerful about determining your own course, and it's not for everybody. The entrepreneurial journey is not for everyone. There's no doubt about it, but for the people who go do it, it's a special kind of satisfaction.
Yeah.
So talk to me about the start of nodaFI. You guys started in 2022. I'm asking this for a very specific purpose because I've been going to SSA shows since March of 2022
Mhm.
and don't remember you guys for the first couple of times I was there. I'll put this out there. I have not stopped at your booth only because I am in no way involved in operations in
Sure.
self-storage. So I apologize that we haven't ever met before. I'm
Oh, good.
glad that I have a network of people that are deep into operations, so I've had the chance to connect with you.
Yeah,
But I've noticed you guys at the booth, and I'll go down that road. But talk to me about the origin and how quickly
yeah.
you got up to speed, and also I'd like to hear about the industries you guys are serving.
Sure. Yeah. Well, not all on you, Thaddeus. We've only had a booth at two events. I
I
can
feel
get into,
better.
yeah, I can get into our whole intro. We had this whole like Cybertruck thing where we gave people rides to the airport. We can talk about that, but we have some fun stuff planned for SSA. We'll have to get you in on that don't
I
involve.
love it.
So but in terms of getting to like how we got into storage and basically what happened is we took the idea, right, like I mentioned, Dan and I were working on this and we were moonlighting it for a while before actually going full time on it, and quitting our job, so getting things kind of spun up. But um, we we got involved in a whole bunch of different industries and again focus on the problem of solving for facility operations, so all the maintenance things, tracking assets, costs associated with those, vendors, that kind of stuff. So it applies to a lot of different industries. um, but what we found, we got one customer and we were just calling people, just trying to see who would talk to us and if they had problems that we could solve. And we got connected with one customer. They're still a customer today, Otter Storage. Um, and they were doing a whole bunch of interesting things that they were building in house. And I had not really even thought about self storage. They kind of surprised me. What are you doing? You're storing stuff for people. Okay, okay. That can't be that hard, right? I think it's like a lot of people's initial reaction if you're not familiar with the industry at first. Um, so I started talking to him and seeing like all of these things that they had built out, or tried to build out, really using spreadsheets and kind of custom software and all these things. And I was like, okay, I think we could really help this operation. Like what we're building is perfectly suited to solve the challenges that they're bringing to us. And so we worked, closely with Otter, and then they 30 sites, fully remote. And they were really trying to push. It's like technology as a solution for filling in the gaps of where you typically have site managers and folks on site. So they were really trying to build something sophisticated out there. Um, and started working with them, and they quickly just became like the heaviest user of the system, and really were kept pushing the limits of it. And that's when we learned how wrong we were originally about, oh, storage, this is a, come on, there's not that many things involved in this, right? And now we know everything there is to know. Not everything. Jesse knows everything.
You're ramping up to speed
we
quickly.
yeah, we learned a lot over the last few years, but that's how we got in, and we saw that, and we're like, okay, there's clearly something here. What we've built as a general purpose facility operations, platform is perfectly suited to solving the needs of storage owners and operators. And since then, we've built a lot of things specifically for self storage. So integrations with the property management systems being probably the most interesting thing that folks look at, but a lot of workflow, kind of automating a bunch of workflows and things as well. So then we got into the conferences right after that. The first one we ever went to was in Wisconsin, and just started asking questions. We actually got in trouble at that one because we didn't sign up as vendors, and we didn't even we had never even been to a conference before. We had no idea how these things work, so we just showed
Yeah.
up, and they're like, you can't be here. All right, well, so we learned our lesson. We did it the right way. Do it the right way now, but that was kind of our foray into storage, and that's the rest is history, I guess.
I love it. So listen, I'm going to go down the road of Jessie Lamb now,
Mhm.
and very well known in our industry and an amazing woman. Forget about her
Yeah,
knowledge of self storage, where she's absolutely a genius.
yeah,
You hired her. Why bring her in house? What was the reasoning behind bringing her into nodaFI?
yeah, yeah. So we were, really fortunate to, Jesse saw the opportunity that Jesse was starting this consulting, company, Bright Beetle, and I think that the moment she posted that, we had been actually familiar with Jesse just through her coming up in conversation, and we had talked to her while she was at Strat about potentially using nodaFI, pretty like recently before she left. So when we saw that post, I think I messaged her right away, and met her at Orlando in the SSA show.
Love it.
Started talking about what she might be interested in working on, and there was just a really good fit, and I think a great chemistry right off the bat. So she started working with us as a consultant, really focused on optimizing our onboarding experience and activations for new customers. So she did a lot of work with our head of customer success there, pairing up and building a rock solid plan for building onboarding new people. And we had her out, in San Francisco at the office. She spent a week with us, and we were just, like to your point, she's an incredible person. So just good energy to have around, I think, as well, in addition to her incredible knowledge on self-storage. So all of those things coming together, when I could tell, she mentioned to me several times that she liked what she was doing, but she missed the team, right? She missed that feeling of actually being on a team. And so when she was going to move to full time, looking for full-time opportunities, we had a conversation, and I didn't actually, didn't originally have that job there, but we created it because Jesse's a special person. And clearly saw like self-storage is our focus, and where we're putting our time and resources and energy into, and we see the problems and challenges that we can solve. So bringing Jesse on, strategically is, made a lot of sense too, outside of her just being a great person to have on your team. And she brings a ton of, across the business, really, just like understanding of the industry, that can result in, better products being built, better ways to kind of convey our messaging to folks, all of that. We've learned a lot from her already, and she's down at the Newport, CSSA show right now. So if anybody's watching and is
Oh,
down,
I'm so jealous. I'm flying to Anaheim tomorrow night. I
oh,
didn't
okay,
know the CSSA shows. There's a Toy Storage Nation in Anaheim Friday,
oh, nice.
and I would have flown a day earlier and gone to the CSSA show, but I didn't know about it until too late. So this is the downside of being on the East Coast. You don't hear everything in San
Yeah.
Francisco.
You got to get
You said,
Jesse's big map of all of the things happening. She's got like, she
yeah,
actually came in with this, 3 foot a poster of like all of the storage companies, and she's got a big map of all the events going on. So she's
there is nobody that will be more organized than Jessie Lamb by
really,
any stretch of the imagination.
yeah.
It's cool for me. I had her on the podcast probably in December
Hmm.
of 2024. And what I love is she was still at Strat at the time, hadn't thought about leaving yet.
Mhm.
But her big thing is and was integrating new technology into operations in a way that does not ruin the customer experience, right?
Mhm.
And I think that's something that I want to talk to you about a little bit. Being so heavy in tech, obviously you've been out in San Francisco for a while now, which is kind of hard not to be somewhere, having those tech discussions. Where do you see tech taking self-storage in the next? Obviously, COVID forced some technology into the self-storage world that honestly didn't really exist. You still got plenty of properties where the manager's house is on top of the office, right? Like that's not an unusual situation in a
Right.
self-storage facility to have the manager living on site. How do you see tech influencing this industry over the next 10 years in a way that it isn't today?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think like, what we're seeing now, and the reason for more I mean, COVID was a catalyst in tons of industries for sure. There's also kind of this generational shift that's undergoing, I think, over probably the next more, yeah, like to your point, 10, 15 years, where there's a lot of new folks coming into the industry. There's this idea that uh, the way things were done, maybe in the early 2000s or in the 90s or whatever. That just like with my with my mom using the notebook, that can work incredibly well because you have all of this sophisticated knowledge you've built up over 50 years, and you don't need anything really, and you can run probably more efficiently than most people. My mom can run the restaurant better than anybody, and she doesn't need to use anything I'm building, right? But as as that, like, that knowledge needs to be transferred, and you bring new people in and you want to actually replicate that and like build a something enduring, there needs to be some means to do that. And generally that's not going to be the notebook. It's generally going to be much more especially the folks coming in are going to be more expecting tools and technology that they're used to in other aspects of their life. So I think there is that like generational mindset shift too, that as you get new folks in, that they introducing technology in ways that's how the next generation is used to working. There is that. And then there's the competitive pressure, I think, from, for sure the REITs are bringing in technology and have, teams of software engineers that are, and I've seen some of it, that are building, sophisticated operational systems that allows them to be more efficient and to keep their prices lower and, keep their margins high. So that competitive pressure that's coming in from folks who are investing in technology. I mean, I think 10 Federal is probably the one of the bigger non-REIT examples of someone going all in on that. And I saw some numbers of like their full-time employees per store that were dramatically lower than a lot of folks. So like all of these competitive pressures and innovations that folks are doing, combined with the generational shift that we're seeing, those things are going to kind of, I think, continue to kind of introduce and get people thinking about introducing technology into their businesses. In terms of the trends that we'll see, I mean, everybody's talking about AI, right? I do think like this is one of those these technological shifts that is actually real, right? It does. There's real value that can be created here. I mean, it's not just the hype. So I mean, I could imagine. I know like Swivel is doing a lot with the chatbots, but I could imagine. I guess just for our own, like from my background, right, software engineering, right? That seems like a job that can be sort of challenging, right? 2
We were
years ago,
talking about this, Chris
yeah,
Berg, who's
right,
Abernathy Holdings out in California. We have
yeah,
the self-storage report that we do every Thursday. And we were talking about this today in the United States. More software engineers graduating college are unemployed than art history majors,
yeah,
right? So to your point about a shift, and I, of course, I was around for the internet coming alive, and what a shift that made in the world.
uh-huh.
Is AI going to be that big of a shift? I love your thoughts on that and love your
Yeah.
take. Obviously, you're right at the forefront of it.
Yeah, I have become more and more convinced that it absolutely will be. And like I said, like these jobs, like highly trained lawyers or software engineers, like these jobs are very well suited to being highly automatable via the new technologies that like new LLM models and AI that it was not possible
I,
even 2 years ago.
I
And
love that
somehow,
you say this.
what's that?
I don't mean to interrupt, but I love that you say this. I plugged into ChatGPT 2 weeks ago and said, write me a JV agreement.
Mm,
I outlined what I was looking for. But look, that used to be especially in our industry, a $500+ an hour lawyer
mhm.
that I was paying multiple hours to go map that out for me. Now I can go into ChatGPT, have it put out an agreement for me. Now, am I going to have my lawyer review it? Sure, I am. But is it going to cost me the same amount of money it would have if I didn't use AI to do it? So to your
Yeah,
point that there's going to be some shifts there, and you either keep up or you don't, right? Like
right.
the market's gonna everyone's like, well, AI is gonna kill jobs. No, AI is gonna take people that know how to utilize it, and they're gonna end up being the ones that have the jobs. I
Right.
think that's my take on it. Anyway, I interjected. I didn't mean to, but you
Oh,
got
no,
me
you're good.
excited. You got me excited with what you're talking about.
Hot
You got me
topic,
down a
right?
rabbit hole.
Yeah, no, it's and I think like so kind of where I was going with that, and to your point, like I totally agree. I mean, I've been telling people, like on my own team too, if you're sort of not utilizing this technology is like somebody in 2017 or 18 saying I'm not going to use Google to help
Yeah,
me with my job, or I'm not going to in 2012 I'm not going to use the internet. I don't think it's really going to help me that much, right? Like
yeah.
it's just like something that to your point right there. Um, these things happen. Like this is it's the the internet, like Google, whatever. These tools are there, and if you're the folks that figure out how to use them and actually incorporate that into your kind of skill set, um, you're going to be successful. And if you try to push that off and don't do anything there, like you are going to get left behind. If so, it is important to keep your skills sharp. On the where what's interesting, I think, is like on that point though, we were talking about lawyers and engineers and folks like, one thing that I've been thinking about is like the importance of kind of actually kind of what you're doing here too, right? Like the as as these like AI models scale and a lot of these things are automated, the importance of human relationships and connection and networking and stuff that becomes more and more valuable because eventually all of this stuff can just be essentially commoditized, right? I could
Yeah.
send you a hyper personalized email that knows everything about you and send that out to a million people, and it means nothing because everybody can do it because they have the latest and greatest AI. But the human connection and actually having a conversation and building trust and going to conferences and these things like that shows that we're actually putting effort in and building like a real connection. So yeah, there's some interesting things that'll happen. This is kind of outside of some self storage stuff.
It's exactly what this podcast is about, quite frankly. And I've never been, I'm about 30 years into my working career, never been so happy that I have an English and history degree and a broadcast journalism degree, right? Like I
Yeah,
used to
yeah,
be mad, like, why didn't I do computer science in 1996? I could have owned the world. I'm like, it's all
yeah,
come full circle. The
yeah,
idea of knowing how to communicate with somebody and having an intelligent conversation, and it's become very, very powerful again,
yeah.
which is pretty neat. I want to cover one more thing. We're at 31 minutes in, and I usually try to wrap up, but
Sure.
this is on my mind. And I don't know if you're familiar with these statistics or not, but about 6% of baby boomers used self storage.
Hmm.
Gen X, my generation, that jumped up to almost 12%. Big jump. The millennials and Gen Z are at 16% usage as a percentage of the total population. And so I'm asking this question. I just had Maurice Pagoda on last week. He's the guy airing right now. Love him to death. The largest owner of self storage in Michigan and Ohio and Kentucky and Indiana now, too. But he got into this business in 1985, and he's still like, hey, there's something to be said for having a manager in a store and somebody to greet somebody. And so I kind of felt I would be remiss in not asking you this as we get to a place where right now I think Gen X is the largest percentage of users of self storage, but millennials is going to supplant that pretty soon, and Gen Z is ultimately probably going to supplant that. Are we going to come to a place where the idea of a traditional store manager on site is not the preferred method for somebody going to rent storage? When the bulk of your customers are millennial and Gen Z, are they going to be more comfortable renting from their phone using things like nodaFI? Hey, if there's a problem with my gate at my store, I can just go on my phone. I don't have to talk to somebody about it. Is that going to become a generational shift that drives technological advancement in the self-storage space, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean I think to a large degree, absolutely. Just the way that millennial generation, Gen Z, like that we think about things and how we like we like you were talking about, right? We've grown up with technology and just being able to kind of like sort of instant gratification, right? I get this thing, I want this thing, click a button, and I get it, right? So any hurdles in that process, and especially in the buying process, I know personally for me, a very low tolerance. Like even going to other websites to like shop for something online, if I have to fill in a lot of information, I'll probably just give up and go somewhere else where I can it has my yeah, I can just pipe my phone number in there and check out instantly, right? So I think reducing and you've seen this like online retail or e-commerce, like reducing friction in the buying process is like one of the most important things that you can do. There's like billion-dollar companies all built around that idea, and so the more you can do that in storage, like reduce friction in the buying process, the better. I do think that there's still, to our point about human connection, and was talking about this with Jesse the other day. Is like there are situations, especially I think in these like really high touch or maybe in markets where folks are much more affluent and they don't want to interact with a computer. Even the millennials, like the very affluent millennials, I think with stuff that's very important to them, or at least they think is very important. I think there's still going to be a place in those areas where they're going to want somebody there because they want the full service kind of high touch um, interaction and experience, and they'll pay for it. But I think the majority of things will keep continuing on that trend of, hey, I want an easy experience to buy and put my stuff in, and I don't want to have to rely on anybody for any part of that process. So I think it'll keep trending that way, but I think there'll still be use cases and markets and things where like the person is relevant. The store manager is very relevant.
Jacob, I want to say thank you, man. I'm always a little nervous when I do a podcast with someone that I haven't spoken to before, but this has been the easiest half hour plus that I could possibly have imagined. Thanks so much for coming and joining me. I want to ask you, if somebody is listening and they're interested in, getting deeper detail about what nodaFI is and maybe want to become a customer for you guys, what's the easiest way for them to get a hold of you?
Yeah. I just want to say thanks for having me, Thaddeus. By the way,
My
really
pleasure.
appreciate the opportunity, and it's been great chatting. Hopefully, we can do this again sometime. But to get in contact with us, I mean, you can just go to nodaFI.com, click the button there. There you go, and get in contact with us, or feel free to email me personally, Jacob@nodaFI.com, and I'll get you in touch with the right people too.
Jacob, really appreciate it. Definitely look forward to furthering the conversation. I'm so excited to watch you guys. As I said, Jesse's a very close friend and excited. I know you had mentioned earlier about the culture aspect from Zendesk and, definitely made me feel like you understand that when you bring her on board. Looking forward to seeing you guys grow. And obviously I'll see you now as you become a more constant at these SSA shows and other events. Looking forward to getting to know you even more. That's it for this week's episode of Stories Behind the Door. He's Jacob Pandl. I'm Thaddeus Campbell. Look forward to seeing you guys next week.
Thanks.